Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah once said, Ghanaians are not timid people. They may be slow to anger and may take time to organize and act, but once they are ready, they strike and strike real hard. It pays no one to tamper with the Ghanaian freedom and dignity. I want us to talk about the three ex-servicemen who were killed on the 28th of February 1948 in Accra. I can confidently say if they had not died that day, Ghana wouldn't have gained independence in 1957. I'm going to show you exactly where the incident occurred and how important it is in our independence story. Just give me a few minutes and I'm going to explain it in very simple terms for all of you to understand. Before Kwame Nkrumah arrived in Ghana in 1947, there was already tension in the country. This was as a result of three main reasons. Number one, the Gold Coast relied on European imports. So shortly after the end of World War II in 1945, there was a shortage of European goods, and the Association of West African Merchants took advantage of the situation and increased the prices of their goods by over 200%. So let's say if a tin of milk was 5 cedis, they were selling it for about 15 cedis. And this also led to the prices of local goods going up, making life unbearable for the Ghanaian. So many people were very angry. Number two, there was this disease known as swollen shoot, which affected cocoa plants. So the only solution back in the day was to cut down all the affected trees. And the farmers were really angry because they expected a compensation for that. And the third reason is during the World War II, a number of Ghanaians were sent to Burma to fight alongside the British. They were of the Gold Coast Regiment of the Royal West African Frontier Force. And these men were promised a lot of things after the war. They were promised pensions, a lot of benefits, and even jobs. But when they came back after 1945, they realized none of the promises was fulfilled. And like I said earlier, the prices of goods were so high, and this also made life really unbearable for them. In January 1948, a Ghana chief by name Nikwabena Boni III took the first bold step and organized a boycott of all European goods. Please follow the timeline of events. Later on the 20th of February, the veterans met Kwame Nkrumah and J.B. Dankwa, where they prepared a petition to be presented to the governor, Gerald Creasy. On the 28th of February, the Association of West African Merchants finally reached an agreement with the organizers of the boycott and reduced their prices. But Ghanaians were still angry because the reduction was not enough. As fate will have it, the veterans decided to submit their petition to the governor, Gerald Creasy, that very day, 28 February 1948. They converged in front of the old polo grounds, which is now known as the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, and started their march, moving forward. Then they got to the Black Star Gate area. Before they could get to the junction leading to the Castle Road, Superintendent Colin Imray and his men intercepted them. Where the exact incident took place is where I have placed the Ghana flag. I'm going to stop right here so that you can hear what actually transpired from the horse's own mouth. This is an account from Superintendent Colin Imray. But before I play the audio, sorry to digress, I realized that a lot of people confuse the image of Sir Colin Imray to that of Superintendent Colin Imray. Sir Colin Imray was born in 1933, so he's obviously not the one. This is the exact picture of Superintendent Colin Imray.
This procession was permitted to go to the Secretariat, where it would be received by a senior government officer who would take it to Sir Gerald Creasy, the governor, and that this Secretariat was well off the direct route through the town up towards Government House. Saturday morning, February the 28th, in Accra, was significant. The trade boycott was to be lifted, and also the procession was due to start around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I spent that morning in the town trying to sense the atmosphere, and it became apparent to me that there was an air of disappointment over the prices in the town of foodstuffs and imported goods, which everybody had hoped were going to be lowered. but they weren't lowered to the amount that had been hoped. From 2 o'clock onwards, I watched the progress of this procession. It formed up in military style, at that stage being mainly composed of ex-servicemen. And I hoped that from that point they might, after all, do what the procession permit had authorised them to do, and that was go to the Secretariat, receive the permit, and then break off and go away. But they didn't. They went straight down into the town in military formation, and during their progress down the town, they were joined by all sorts of thugs in and around Accra, who certainly were not ex-servicemen. My dispatch riders every now and again to tell me what was happening. The telephone from certain points that I had arranged down the town worked very well. I knew that the procession liable to go astray, at least I feared it, because they were down in the middle of the town, and all they had to do now, if things were going to go wrong, was go straight towards Government House. And they did. The police came out and tried to stop them. They brushed aside without any trouble at all. So into my lorry I got my armed men, and away we went. We all converged, and we only got there just in time. The procession was by that time extremely noisy. Many of them were carrying sticks, they were brandishing aloft. They were singing and shouting and making tremendous noise. We got there just in time, and I deployed the men across the road. I ordered a bugler to sound the action, and I stepped forward, put up my hand, and I shouted out to these people, both in English and in Hausa, to stop. There was a leader in front with another man, and this leader was blowing a sort of wooden trumpet and urging people forward. Again, my hand went up, and I said, "You're going to stop, or I'm going to open fire." They were quite clearly coming forward again by this time, and we were going to get engulfed. So finally, I shouted, "Fire!" Not a single shot went off. I seized a rifle from one of the men, and I fired 6 shots. I fired at the man with the horn, fired at his deputy, and I killed them both. And I fired 4 more shots. As these 2 went down, so the crowd started to surge back. And by that time, I fired 1 more shot, and they started to run. I fired 3 more shots, and they were all helter-skelter away down the road.
The death of Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Atipu, and Private Udate Lamte was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Ghanaians went mad, took to the streets, and were destroying all the shops, burning them. And the British had never seen this before. They never knew Ghanaians were capable of that. And this went on for about 5 days and eventually led to the arrest of high-ranking members of the UGCC. That is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, J.B. Dankwa, Akufo-Addo, Akwa Ejei, Obechebi Lamte, and Ofori-Atta. Ghanaians began to see these 6 men as heroes, and that's how come we got the name the Big Six. So during my research, I found something interesting. When they were first detained together, all of them were blaming Kwame Nkrumah for their predicament. And I'm sure that's where the seed of breaking away from the UGCC started. After the riots, the British colonial government set up a commission of inquiry to look into the matter. And that's how come the Watson Commission was formed. And one of their major recommendations was that the Gold Coast needed a new constitution which allowed more Ghanaians into the Legislative Assembly. And it was through this that Nkrumah's CPP was able to win more seats, thereby leading to him becoming a prime minister. All I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that if the veterans had not died that day, there wouldn't have been a riot, which will lead to the formation of a new constitution, which will give Nkrumah the chance to become a prime minister, thereby pushing the agenda for Ghana's independence. I'm sure if it had not happened, Ghana's independence would have been delayed. Anytime you see the image of Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Atipu, and Private Udate Lamte, remember that it was because of their blood. That's why Ghana gained independence in 1957. Thank you very much.